Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Saturday, and it has been a very interesting morning already because it's taken me a while to get my brain out of the fog of life. Life can be difficult, but it can be fun at the same time. I read a bunch of comments this morning, and two particular people who have been with me since the get go. I mean, literally, they've been with me since before I became monetized. And they basically they get my ear faster than anybody else because of the fact that not only have they been here longer and they know who I am and know my problems and know my issues and know Jerry, not personally, like we've never met in person, but we've had plenty of um, conversations via texting and messaging on here. And I'm sorry if I'm not looking at the camera. My eyes are having trouble focusing on the camera, so when I look at it, my eyes start to get blurry, or my vision gets blurry. I don't know. It's one of the things I need to get checked. But they were both telling me how they preferred listening to me talk about my interests and my knowledge of the Vikings over conversations about Jerry's health or my health or what's going on around the house health wise. So I have decided that I'm going to try to leave the health information to a minimum, if not once a week, because every day is either different or the same. Mostly the same lately. I mean, yes, Jerry's improving health wise, but that's the same as yesterday. My health is the same as it was yesterday. Mom's health is. I can never tell with mom. Mom changes day to day. She changes more than I do. So I am going to try to focus on other things than our personal health because, well, thinking about it now that I am, I begin to realize that our health should remain between us and the doctors. Not everybody wants to know what's going on with our health. And I figured, okay, well, if people want to know how Jared's doing or how I'm doing, they can always ask. They can always send me a message or say, hey, you didn't talk about what's going on with you guys' health. Is everything okay? They can do that. And I'll be more than willing to answer them one on one. And of course, you can tell how I'm doing right now because, you know, bronchitis can be a real pain in the butt. And yes, it is bronchitis because I've had it all my life. So, But anyhow, I actually wanted to talk about something that we received, that we ordered and got yesterday. And I think now that I have it and I look at it and I read the information, I'm realizing maybe everybody should have something like this. And I'll explain why after I show it to you. It is a portable power station, and it's not that big. It's kind of heavy more than anything. But the reason why I think everybody should have something like this unit can be charged either via your wall socket, your car cigarette lighter, or solar panels. The solar panels do not come with this unit. You have to buy them separately. They're about, well, I'm not going to tell you how much they are, but we got this for almost 75% off due to a Dave and Sissy ad. But Dave and Sissy is a young couple, they're a young couple who get stuff from Amazon. All their stuff is from Amazon, and they test it out for you before they try to put it on sale. And they have a deal with Amazon that Amazon will send them items, and at least I think that's the deal, because every day they have a Dave and Sissy special through Amazon, where you can watch them. They show, or not watch them, but they show like all the different things that they have on special. This was one of them. They've been having a lot of summer camping type stuff on special. And the specials could be anywhere from 30% off to 75% off. But this unit, like I said, you can plug it into your wall socket, charge it, car socket, charge it, or solar panels. And it has the ability, it has an LED light, which is really bright. I almost blinded myself when I accidentally turned it on. It has ports, like cigarette ports and various types of ports for charging the unit or charging your device. It has two regular USB ports, one lightning USB port, and then there's another one. I don't remember what it is without pulling out the box and the paper, the whole thing. It has a wall socket, 12, AC or DC. I think it's AC, but I'm not sure. It's an AC, yeah. It's got DC, USB, AC for charging your devices or plugging in like a laptop or something like that cannot be charged via USB. It has an import unit for you plug in whatever goes into the charging unit and plug it into whatever you're charging it from. It's good for camping, hiking, emergencies in your home. Now, if you're not a camper or a hiker and you've never thought about this, let me put a little food for thought for having one of those in your house. Let's say you live like here in the Midwest or in an area that's prone to natural disasters or power outages. My area is prone to, if it gets too hot, guess what? We might have a brownout or a blackout, depending on how long it takes them to fix the error or fix the problem. We also have strong winds, lightning and thunder, possible tornadoes, depending on what part of the Midwest you live in. But let's say you live in an area that does not have tornadoes, but you have flooding, or you have avalanches out of the mountains that could knock out a power line. Anything that could cause power outages in your home. And let's say they can't get to the problem right away because of weather, and you might be without power for hours, if not a day or more. I know, and I've heard stories in the past, especially down in this in the South. I can't remember if it was Atlanta or not Atlanta, Alabama, or Mississippi, because of the flooding after that one major hurricane. Katrina. There we go, Katrina. They were out of power for a very long time because they could not fix the problem due to the flooding. You have a power bank like this, you can charge your phones, your laptop, computer. Unfortunately, you got to watch how much juice you run out of, because if you don't have solar panels, you might not be able to reduce it. But it's good. And in fact, the instructions say how many hours each type of device can take to charge. Power bank like this in your emergency kits or your emergency supplies with solar panels or some sort of alternate charging, like maybe your car is good and you can charge it through your car. Maybe you've got good sunlight but no power, so you can put out a separately bought solar panel system. It's handy for a lot of different things besides camping or RVing or whatever. It's just one of those things that it would be nice to have in your house just in case. With the way the weather has been getting, and severe weather is getting worse as we go by. Something like that might be good for your home. Don't know. I was not asked to try to sell this device. I'm just telling you what I feel about it. You don't even have to get this one. You can get any one you want. In fact, if you want, let's say you're a single person. They do sell these little boxes that have solar panel on it, and you can charge through the little box. They don't cost as much as something like that, but something that can be charged by solar panel in an emergency situation would be smart. But anyhow, that's enough on that. Like I said, I did not get prompted to sell it. I did not get asked to put it on my video. It's just something I think is a great buy. Next thing that I wanted to talk about was what I'm trying to do around the house. We are I'm going to say 85, I'm going to be generous and say 80% done with all our cleaning and purging and rearranging and setting up and all that fun stuff that we've been working on for a little too long for my likes, but because of my personal issues and Jerry's issues, it hasn't been done as quickly as I would like. I would have loved to have it done before the summer. That way I could have spent the summer doing whatever. But here we are. It's almost the end of June. I've been out of work since end of May. I am looking. I am struggling, but I'm looking. I kind of know some of the reasons why some people don't want to hire me is because of the way I look, especially with my teeth. Hair and whatnot can be fixed, can be redone, things of that nature. In fact, I got to go in and finish what I was doing the other day with this because it's starting to grow back and I want to shave it so it stays shaved. It's not really procrastination. It's more like I get stuck in a rut because it's like I don't know what I'm doing, or I don't know what to do because I have to deal with Jerry. And hey, you know what? I'm not complaining. It's just some things I think need to be tossed out because we don't use or anything like that. Jerry might be like, no, we need to keep that for this, or this. And I'm like, okay, it's in a drawer, it's out of my way. But I want to consolidate my drawers so I can get rid of some of the other cabinets that we bought and built and put in place because we didn't have enough room for storage. And I'm like, yeah, we don't have enough room for storage because there's all our stuff plus mom's stuff, and trying to decide which of all the stuff combined should be kept. So it's an ongoing process. That's life. It's everything, literally everything is an ongoing process. And yeah, I'm stubborn and whatnot, and sometimes I don't like change, but sometimes it's like I'm ready for a change. I am so ready for a change of venue, or not venue. What's the word? Scenery? I'm ready to move to a different location just because I'm ready to see different scenery. Now, some people go, why you want to do that? You haven't seen all of Missouri. And I'm like, well, I've seen all of Missouri that I want to see. I've seen all the sites. I've seen fantastic caverns and the zoos and the animal safari parks and, all the important stuff. And people are like, well, Branson's always changing. Branson's a tourist trap for me. I mean, yeah, it's got some nice stuff in there, and we haven't been down to Branson in a long time because it's practically the same thing every time we go. We don't go to any of the shows. The last show we went to was I can't remember the name of the theater, but it was a live theater with animals and the whole 9 yards, and it was I think it had something to do with the life of Moses or something like that. Moses in living color or what, I can't remember the name of it. That's the last one. That's the thing I remember going to see, and yeah, it was great and whatnot. And it had intermission, and it was quite long, but it was very interesting and very fun. So yeah. Well, that was one of them. I think we went for another one, and it had to do with Noah and the Ark. Yeah, that was the other one we went to see. And that was down in Branson. I'm not into Silver Dollar City. I'm not into any of those places. I mean, medieval times, sure. some of the other type of venues they have down there, maybe. But they don't have medieval times down in Branson. You'd have to go to, I think the nearest medieval times is Chicago. It's either Chicago or KC. I thought about it every so often. I thought about if I had the money, I'd buy one of these nice plots of land that has 30 plus acres and turn it into some sort of like entertainment play. Come to Rolla, Missouri, and experience Nordic living. But and there's groups that will help you do stuff like that. But I personally don't think I can do that right now because of all the things going on in my life. I would love to be able to have a, not really a theater type show, but like, book a cabin, live in a cabin, like, live in a Viking style house, or guest building or whatever, or come in for dinner in history, or dinner in a not really a big show, but like just eat like a Viking, stay and live like a Viking for a week, something like that. But I don't have the money nor the all the knowledge that I would need to deal with that. And I don't mean just knowledge of dress or cooking methods or foods. I mean like how to run it, how to keep the books up, things of that nature, how to advertise it, But I'm just trying to take care of my life right now and live as happily as I can. And unfortunately, especially with retail therapy, becomes buying. And that's one of the reasons why I try to stay out of the Amazon website or the various different websites that I can go to for stuff that I'm interested in, for camping gear, military surplus, Wayfair. I'm just trying to think of some of the websites I know about that I try to stay away from. It's life, and it can be difficult, and we try our best to deal with it. Jerry, Jerry's Jerry, and I'm not gonna go talking about it because I don't need people getting negative about it, because it's our lives. Why are you being so negative about it? We've got enough issues of our own. But anyhow, I did not, in the past, everything was semi-prepared. And what I mean by that is I had written down a topic issue to talk about. Last couple months, almost a year, has been just off the top of my head, just whatever comes out, comes out. But I'm hoping later on today, if I have time, I want to sit down and start, like, not writing out a script. No, I don't write out a script. What I do is I jot down notes like, let's talk about this. We're going to read this book so we can talk about it. I'm thinking that tomorrow's Sunday. I don't know if I'm going to talk about the Bible or if I'm going to talk. I think I'm just going to grab the book I've been reading and talk about the book, because to me it's an interesting book. And it's called the Viking Handbuch. B-O with an umlaut, O-K. And I might be pronouncing it wrong, but it's yeah. It basically talks about everything and anything that they know about Vikings. Their clothing, their hairstyle, their lifestyle, their, how they cooked, how they lived, how they made tools, how they dealt with their environment and trying to farm the environment, the trade goods, the basically anything and everything that had to do with the. And the only thing I don't like about this book is the fact that the way they titled it, I was thinking, oh, okay, they're going to talk about the raiding and the weapons and the boats. No, this particular book should have been the Norseman's Handbook, because it talks about everything that had to do with their lifestyles and the way they had to deal with their environment and the mead making, and all the different things, not just about the warriors and their boats and their raids into England, or their sacking, or the siege on Paris. All the different things that I know about the history of what the Vikings did. Now, as I said yesterday, Viking is not a people, it is an occupation. That's why I'm kind of mad at the book, because like I was thinking, okay, they're going to talk about the warriors and how they prepared and what they did and the raids, and no. This book has to do with everything from their lifestyle to their trading to their tools to archaeological finds to anything and everything that had to do with the Norsemen, the people, not their occupation. Because I can tell you what their occupations were. There were raiders, that's the Vikings. There was farmers. There was tradesmen, which means blacksmith, woodworkers, weavers, dressmakers, all that stuff. But I think it's a very interesting book, because it literally talks about the people, aka the Norsemen, not the warriors or raiders, aka Vikings. So it's one of those books where it's like, title's misleading, but the information is very intriguing, and I think it's educational. I think it gives more insight into. Sorry, I don't know what that was. I don't know. But anyhow, sorry, I don't mean to be picking at my beard while you guys are watching me. But it gives me a little bit more knowledge of their everyday lives, not just one aspect of their life, but the whole, how life was in what back then, the whole area, the whole territory before it was divided up into individual countries was just Scandinavia. And even after they were broken up in their individual countries, they still consider that area what they called Scandinavia, which there are no Scandinavians. It's just a whole territory. It's Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and that area of Russia, what we now call Russia, was part of what was back then Scandinavia. And they were broken up not by countries at first. They were broken up like, okay, you live in that town, you live in that town. That town is known for their trade goods and whatnot. And that area is known for their, the people weren't called, they weren't individually called anything. They were just like, okay, you're from, I can't remember what they called it, but it's modern day Oslo. And this group is from what is now known as St. Petersburg, Russia. And this group is, they were all called Danes because they came from, I don't know why they call them Danes, but they're now known as, area is now known as Denmark. In fact, the area that became St. Petersburg wasn't even called Russia. They were called Rush, R-U-S, and it had to do with the fact that they had red hair. They were redheaded area, and they just called them Rush, and then over time they became Russians or Russia. A lot of things that I've been learning about the Norse people and where they came from, or why they were called certain names, or why they were given certain titles, or let's say back then there was no last names. Why Ragnar Lothbrok was called Ragnar Lothbrok, I'm not 100% sure. In fact, he's one of the few people in Norse history that had a last name. Most people is like, here's your first name, and what came after it was either the name of your father, or the name of your occupation, or the name of the area you were from. So, and that's why I make fun of my last name, because the fact that I now that I know in historical times, especially the Viking era or the Norse era, however you want to call it, um, if I lived in those days and let's say I was an English resident or from England and my first name was James, but my last name was Henson, basically you're the son of a chicken farmer. And they call the chickens a lot of times just hens. So, if we lived back then, your last name would be either your family name, like the name of your father or the name of your mother, or the name of the occupation that you had. In fact, what I read once is your name, your what we now consider a last name, would change multiple times as you got older. So if I was younger, I would just be called James, the son of James, because my father's name was James. Um, but as I got older, depending on the occupation I took, or let's say when I got to 13, which back then was considered you just entered manhood, now you have to prove yourself. Um, a lot of times, especially the royals, the higher ups, um, the rich people, their last name would be given to them by the church. So let's say the church decided to designate my last name as Henson. That's my family. That's my family name now. So all my family from that point on would be called Hensons. You know, Debbie Henson, Matt Henson. You know, whatever my child's first name would be would have my last name attached to it. That was something that happened during the era of Christianity because the church was designating last names or creating last names for people for their families instead of saying this is James Henson or James son of Hen. Um, in fact, maybe one of my ancestors' first name started with Hen or sounded like hen, and then the coming to America got changed to Henson. Who knows? I have not found out why my name is the way it is. I'm just telling you what I read. So back in the Viking era or anything before, when did last names become last names? 15, 14, 1500s. They started using family names for a last name. But before that, it was like if you were a bread maker, I would be James the bread maker, or James the farmer. You know, my last name would be my occupation, or something to do with my family's occupation, or if it wasn't an occupation, it was like you know James from Denmark, or James the Dane. You know, things like that. It wasn't until like 13, 14, or 1500s proper last names became used. But during Ragnar's time in the 800s, most people did not have a last name. They just had a first name. And if there was more than one person with the same first name, they would try to, okay, there's two Jameses in our village, so we got to figure out which one is which besides the way they looked. So it was like James the blacksmith or James the farmer or whatever. If they did not have an actual designated career path or whatever you want to call it, they would create a last name. Maybe they, like Eric the Red. The reason why Eric the Red was called Eric the Red wasn't just the fact that he was a brutal, bloody person, but because he, according to stories and whatnot, he had a red beard. Just like during, in fact, even as early as the Pirates of the Caribbean, and not the movie, I'm talking about the real pirates that plundered the Caribbean oceans. Blackbeard, that was his nickname. I don't know if I ever knew his first name, but Eric the Red. Everybody knows who Eric the Red was. He's a big name in the Viking histories. He had a very bloody past, but everybody called him Eric the Red. Whether it was a chosen name or an actual given name, we don't know. Same with Blackbeard. I think Blackbeard was a chosen name because the fact that everybody recognized him for his wild black hair and beard. You know. But names are an interesting thing because, look at modern day names. A lot of people choose modern day names because it's a family name. Granted, in my family, James, it was just me and my dad. But the thing is, a lot of people choose first names because, a representation of a family member, or it's just a name that's a family. My family, my dad's side of the family, I should say, most of our names are chose out of biblical context. My name, James. He was a king. He was also, James was not. James was a disciple. My middle name, and I'm not going to give it to you, was a king from biblical times. I have cousins named for people out of the Bible. Yes. I have a Matthew. I have a Mark, and I have not a Mark. Yes. Matthew, Mark, Luke. We don't have a John. I also have a Debbie and a Susan. Those are all names from the Bible, from the New Testament, except for my middle name and my dad's middle name. All our names have been biblical-based, names, because the fact that my dad and his brother grew up in a very Catholic family, so they chose the names out of the Bible. But I have family members from his side of the family that are not based in biblical-based names. So names are an interesting thing, and yes, this is kind of my vlog today is kind of based on names. Historically, names were chosen for either, the first names are usually either chosen by a family member or gifted upon them by the earl or the leader of the tribe, or the shaman, soothsayer, whatever you want to call them, of the tribe. A lot of times families would go to the shaman of the tribe and say, can you have a vision to help me name my child? Could you tell me what the gods suggest I name my child? But the use of last names have only been around for a couple thousand years, a couple hundred years. As far back as the 1300s, maybe even the 1200s. I don't remember when last names started becoming a norm, but I know during the 800 to about 1200 AD, so that's 400 years, about 400 to 500 years. Last names were you were identified as, your last name was basically an identifier of what you do. Are you a blacksmith? Are you a farmer? Are you a seamstress? Are you a leather worker? What was your occupation? And that's one of the, I think that's one of the reasons why the word Viking identifies is used more and more to identify the people, even though that's wrong. It was because of the factor you didn't hear stories about, oh yeah, Gunther the blacksmith, he makes like the best swords around. You want to get a weapon from him before you go raiding, go Viking or Vikingar. And that's what it was. Is most of those people who were raiders, yeah, your first name might have been Gunther or whatever, Ragnar, but your title might have been a Vikingar, not Viking, but Vikingar, which is basically what they called the Vikings back then. You hear more stories about them than you do the townspeople. You might have stories about various leaders that led the people of the time. Several different stories I've read about. I can't remember. Was it Harold the Fine Hair, or was he just called King Harold? But King Harold of Norway united the people as one nation instead of bickering and fighting amongst themselves to go exploring, to go raiding, to go do the things that we hear stories of the Vikings. But they weren't called, not everybody was called the Viking because, in fact, not everybody did the raiding. Not everybody went out Viking, you know. But because of the English, the English, originally called them the Northmen or Norsemen. And that's what they were called because, in fact, most of the Vikings came out of, a unified Norway or a unified Denmark. And it was like, okay, the ones that came out of Norway as a unified people were Norsemen. The people that came out of Denmark were just called Danes. So a lot of times the stories you hear about Vikings are usually the ones out of Norway, or I think Norway was the major part of that northern part of Europe, which included Sweden and Finland. And I don't know if that was all unified or if it was just Norway unified by Harold, and Finland and Sweden were under somebody else's control, and they all got together and agreed and made pacts and went raiding and whatnot. And all those people were called the Vikings, while the people out of Denmark were just called Danes. The people who were nowadays called Russians, which were at a point in time a good portion of that part of northern Russia, northeast Russia, were called Rush, and they did join raiding parties to go over to England, but for the most part they traveled westbound to conquer more area that's now called Russia. But the histories may title the Norsemen as Vikings because that's what they did, but that was not their that's not the name of the people. Yeah, I'm starting to repeat myself from yesterday. Sorry. But this book I was talking about, the Viking Handbook, it doesn't talk about just their occupation. It talked about everything you needed to know to be part of the culture of the Norsemen, not the Vikings. I haven't even gotten to any area that talked about their raiding and whatnot. Most of what I talked about was their homesteads, their clothing, the materials that they used for farming, and how it evolved from wood to metal, things of that nature. It hasn't even gotten into weapons or boats or anything like that. They did talk a little bit about boats, but nothing to do with the raids or anything like that so far. But I have to bring that in here tomorrow or Monday. tomorrow I may or may not do something from the Bible. It really depends on where my brain is and if I can find a chapter and verse or something to talk about, which I might pull out of my notebook to discuss, read, whatever. But yeah, I want to get back to what I was originally doing before cancer. I almost want to say before BC, but yeah, that would confuse a lot of people. But I've been saying it for the last couple of days. I want to get back to what I was originally doing that everybody seemed to like. And, well, if that causes some people to jump ship, well, they let them let them jump ship, because they might be like, oh, we better leave now because he's getting back to the Bible stuff and, that ship's going to sink. No, it's not. It's not. But besides, if I can start doing what Jerry's been trying to teach me, which is using hashtags, that might attract some people. Especially on the videos where it's hashtag Viking, hashtag Norse, hashtag whatever hashtag I decided to put in there to identify what my day vlog will be like. But I know there's plenty of people who, what am I trying to think? I want to say the overzealous Bible people who can't see anything beyond, you can't see past the blinders of what they've been trained or taught to focus on when it comes to the Bible. Because I've noticed in the past, when I went from talking about the Bible on certain days and then switched over to talk about Vikings or Norse people on other days, people started getting into an uproar about how can you be a believer in Christ and turn around and talk about these pagans? Because they're my ancestors and they're part of they're part of history. They're part of American history. If you don't believe it or not, you might want to try to pick up some information outside of the normal history of America. Because if you look back to 600 years before Christopher Columbus, you would find that Leif Erikson discovered part of North America, now known as Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. Newfoundland came years and years after Christopher Columbus, but they are discovering historically areas of North America from Maine all the way over to the Great Lakes to Minnesota and down the Mississippi, down the rivers from the Great Lakes to areas like I think they found something off the coast of the Carolinas or along the coast of the Carolinas that date back to the Vikings. They discovered places in like all different areas along the rivers and tributaries as far south as I can't remember how far south. But I know they've been discovering in a lot of different areas here in America, as far over as Connecticut and as far south as the Carolinas, that are basically what they're finding in these burial sites that they found is evidence of Nordic weapons and Nordic style clothing. So history is discovering that America was found 600 years before Christopher Columbus, and there's no evidence of why they left or how long they stayed, or did they integrate with the indigenous people, or did they just explore what they could? Because there is a piece of history from Norway about Leif Erikson saying the reason why they didn't stay at first is because the island, or the spot that they landed on, was covered in vines and just, you know, too foreign to them. Basically, it just, you know, to them, you know, the forest ground being covered in vine like stuff, is bad omen, is bad juju. So, you know, I don't know if he led any more parties into North America, or if he just, you know, went back home, discovered how to get back home, because the reason why he discovered America is he got blown off course. But when he got back home, he reported his findings, and don't know what happened after that. You know, don't know if it was brave souls that said, hey, you know what, he discovered this little area, what else is out there? You know, what kind of resources can we get and bring home? That kind of stuff. Because that's basically what they were doing when they started exploring the European coastline, is to find new sources of wood and places to farm. They weren't looking for a fight. In fact, it was the British who basically chased them off and slaughtered a bunch of their people, that they went, no, we're not backing down from this fight. You know, we're going back over there and taking what we want. And that's what started the whole history about the Vikings and the raids and the bloody battles and all that stuff. So there's a little piece of history for you. But like I said, tomorrow I'm either going to sit down and try to read something from my Bible notes, or maybe just go straight outright into talking about the Viking handbook. I don't know. Depends on how I feel. And I'm sorry, this is another long video. My wife is probably going, what is taking him so long? So if you enjoyed this little video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments about this video, go ahead and put them in the comment box. I will look at them and either try to address them directly, or I will maybe write down some notes and talk about them. See what happens. But it's your choice. I mean, hopefully you'll be positive about it, because I tend to turn a blind eye and blind ear to negativity nowadays. If you're new to my channel and want to hear more about the Vikings, or maybe join me tomorrow and listen in on the Bible videos, which I'm limiting the Bible stuff to, I'm going to start limiting it to Sundays and Wednesdays only. The rest of the week will be anything and everything from new camping stuff, if we get any more stuff, our planned adventures, the Norsemen, nature, whatever suits my fancy, or, you know, gets me going. So yeah, if you want to join because of those things, you can click the subscribe button. I'm gonna start putting I'm gonna start learning how to use hashtags. But once you click on the subscribe button, a little bell will pop up, and you click on that bell, and YouTube will let you know when I put in my next video. So until next time, you guys have a good day. Enjoy. Bye.